talk about that realm from different perspectives. Lars will be talking about the values that we can offer in LogPoint, but actually those values are the universal standards and how you can actually like reach out to those, while Ulrich will be showing you a hands-on experience of how to put these things in place and how LogPoint will actually enable you for those global standards. And this is the agenda. We will start in an open conversation about modern STEAM. That is to say that we would like to engage with you. We would like you to join to the discussion of like how you leverage your log management systems or SIEM systems. So it's not only about that we are kind of giving you an idea, but it's also about that we are taking your feedback from you and understanding what your infrastructure looks like. And later that we will talk about how LogPoint delivers the best in breed log management by Lars and Ulrich, but from different perspectives as such. And then we will basically focus on the core point of this webinar, which is predictable pricing that makes a SIEM licensing transparent. And at the end of it, we will give you some time for Q&As.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Isa, for the good introduction. And just to start off, we speak with a lot of organizations on a daily basis. And some of the main challenges that they highlight are compliance, because most of organizations, they need to meet increasing levels of compliance requirements, which is both a very complex and a very time-consuming task. A good example of this is NIS2 in the EU, where a lot of organizations, they struggle right now. And if you don't have a broad data foundation from your infrastructure, it can be very difficult to report to the authorities. Another challenge is alert fatigue. You probably have a team of skilled employees, but often they're also included in other internal projects and in the daily IT operations, which means that they simply don't have the capacity to prioritize and to address the most important alerts. And this is why automation is so crucial, because it frees up resources and also ensures a timely response to critical threats. And this is actually an integrated part of our SecOps platform. But to be able to get the alerts, you need to collect data from a broad set of log sources in your infrastructure, which can be very costly with a volume-based license. This is also why best practices for log storage and retention, they are often not met. You need to be able to go back in time and do your forensics. And from a cost perspective, many of our customers, they have chosen to use our on-prem solution because it's much more affordable compared to, for example, a SaaS solution. At the same time, we also offer automatic tiering. So maybe the first 30 days is stored on some fast storage, and then it's automatically tiered down to some cheaper storage. We also see that volume-based pricing can force organizations to leave out critical log sources, such as firewalls, because they do produce a lot of data and therefore become very costly on the license fees. But do you know where you want to be blind? At LogPoint, we believe that a license based on the number of log sources, not data volume, can help organizations to broaden the scope of data collection and also provide budget predictability. And we all know that there will be generated more and more data in the future. Lastly, it's difficult for organizations to keep up with the rapidly changing threat landscape, especially with the state actors becoming more aggressive and also the launch of AI malware. Our world-class security research team, they actually ensure that the latest detections are included in the platform and can be activated directly in the platform to ensure that your security posture remains relevant. And often this is actually the biggest investment in relation to a SecOps platform. But with us, it's always part of the subscription. So let's take a look at how we actually stack up against the competition. We can ensure that you know exactly where your data is, and we can also ensure that you remain in control. We can provide you with predictable pricing based on log sources, so you avoid that costs they run out of control. We have an open platform enabling flexibility where others lock customers into walled gardens. Our data normalization happens automatically, and we do deliver a broad range of integrations that include dashboards, alerts, and reports. And lastly, we are known in the market for our world-class support. Our main priority is to have happy customers, and we will go a long way to ensure that the customers get the value out of the platform that they expect. And we do love to engage with customers, which is supported by the next part of the webinar, a short poll where you also have the opportunity to chip in. So please go ahead, Aisha.
All right. Now that's the fun part. So in this section that we will try to think together, but it's more like we want to learn from you so that we can shape organically this webinar more of like in a consultancy format, so that we can understand who our audience is a bit more in terms of like your security posture, and therefore that would actually like give you an absolute value of like me and my colleagues understanding your situation better. So the first question is, if you have currently a SIEM solution, I will pull the question in a second, and please go ahead and answer. I will give around 40 seconds. Now we are 20, so 20 more seconds for the sake of not making this part very long because we have a couple more questions. All right. Perfect. So I hope everyone can see the results. Lars, Ulrich, if you guys are seeing the results, the attendees should be as well. So most of us are basically using Logpoint. That is a great call. And there are some other tools, and there are also people are not using any SIEM solution currently, but they are evaluating options. So that's great. And luckily, there is no one who's not interested with the SIEM and still in this webinar. All right, so the next question is, how integrated is automation, quote unquote, SOR, within your current SIEM or log management? Let's go. Ten more seconds. And perfect. So let's see. Most of the folks have fully integrated in the same platform. I mean, of course, if they're using Logpoint, for sure, that's what we will be showing today as well with Ulrich. And some of them are partially integrated via third-party tool and no automation in place, which is also like, which is actually those two are the biggest majority, that people are either not having any automation or partially integrated via third-party tools. Ulrich, that gives you some idea.
Yes, and one thing we do see when we speak with customers is that we experience that a lot of teams, they are under a lot of pressure, as I also discussed initially. They do have a lot of different tasks they need to adhere to. So it can be very difficult if you're not using automation to actually ensure that you have the timely response to critical threats. So this is a really important conversation and something that we would like to engage in even more, both with our existing customers, but also with other organizations who might be interested.
Okay, so for the timely response to the threats that one needs, SOAR, and some of folks here today with us are like either having the third-party tools, which might potentially give them some like time gaps, or people don't even have an automation in place. And actually, like there is a very minor, but there's still an answer, which is not sure. We do not need SOAR. So I mean, some people are also maybe opposing what you just said, but I will write it on the chat. Timely responsive threats. And if you folks are thinking anything about this, please write us on the chats so Lars can actually answer to you. Oops. And let's go to the next question. How would you rate the ease of configuring dashboards and alarms in your SIEM? All right. Five more seconds to rate your alarms and dashboards in your SIEM. And let's share the results. So, all right. Well, this is actually like a really nice mediocre diagram. What I see, like most people are rating at 6, but like on the margins, there's not much of the answers. So like basically the majority has a mediocre dashboards and alarms, easy to use, which is, I think, Lars, one of the big challenges of nowadays modern SIEM users, or?
Yes, it can be. What we try to do as LogPoint, as also said, we do have a security research team who develop these detection in packages. So you actually get it out of the box. So you can just download it to your SIM, activate it, and then you actually have a fairly good coverage. Obviously, not every organization look alike, so you need to do some tweaking. But we're always interested in speaking both with our own customers, obviously, but also with organizations interested in it, to see how could we actually address, the specific alarms or alerts or vulnerabilities that they have identified in their organization. So it's always something we can tweak. We are very flexible in regards to what we can actually set up to detect in regards to use cases.
All right. Cool. I will share a link on the chat in a second of our research team articles. If anyone is interested, you can always read their researches. Cool. And our next question: how do you currently manage log retention across different data types? Perfect. Let's go. Mm-hmm. Five more seconds. And let's see the results. All right. The majority is voted for custom retention by source type. I think that gives some kind of understanding to Ulrich in terms of like how would they be leveraging LogPoint.
Yeah, and that is obviously the optimal way to do it, because then you're saving on the storage, but you're utilizing that the ability to manage it according to the requirements you have from standards or legislation and stuff like that. So this is a good answer. Obviously, if the retention is limited by storage capacity, that's not optimal, both in terms of maybe you're abiding to the complying with the standards or the legislation, but also from a forensics point of view, you might want to go back if where we have some of the attacks, they are actually within your environment for a very long time. So when you do detect them, you do want to know exactly what was the scope and what was the initial attack vector. And if you don't have that stored, so you don't have the sufficient retention, you will not be able to detect to know that. So yeah.
Okay, so to know the initial attack, you need to store the log data, and that's why the custom retention by source is the best practice that Logpoint is also making available for its customers, apparently. And the last question is, what's the biggest pain point in your current SIEM log management experience? Mm-hmm. All right, 5 more seconds for the answers, and let's share the results. Right, alert fatigue and complex configuration. Well, these are the values that Logpoint can stand out for sure, and that's one of the two of the main topics of our webinar today, where you will see like how hands-on that you can actually overcome those challenges by Ulrich's demo. But obviously cost unpredictability was also voted, so that's what Lars will cover of how Logpoint can actually address that challenge. And we are happy that there's actually folks that are voted for those like overknown challenges that we have been trying to be the thought leaders about, especially on the alert fatigue and complex configuration realm. Cool.
And then just to add to that, Aisha, I would also say in regards to the complex configuration, that is something we hear from a lot of different SIM vendors. What we try to do at Logpoint also is we have launched the Logpoint Academy, where we actually have a broad range of on-demand trainings, both if you're a user configuration, but also from the administrator side, and for a lot of different products in our portfolio. So that is something, a place where you can really get a lot of knowledge. And obviously, we are always interested in engaging with you directly as well. So it's just a side comment.
We also have professional services which we can support our customers with, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, and we're also trying, to make the product gradually better in terms of simplifying the user experience. So the consumability, for instance, regard of log sources, we've actually made some significant changes to make it much easier to actually configure new log sources. And in other ways, we're also improving it to ensure that we have a good consumability by our customers.
Right. And who knows, maybe one day we have a co-pilot and an AI assistant that is helping with all of those configurations.
Yeah.
Sky's the limit. All right, let's move on.
Yes. So how does it actually work, our Logpoint solution? As Lars mentioned, it can be deployed in the cloud. It can be deployed on-premise, so both air-gapped and just standard on-premise. And it's a very flexible way we can do it. Obviously, we can have just one server if you're talking one premise, but you can also have it distributed in the way that you have. Maybe if you're an MSSP, you might want to have actually Logpoint servers out at the specific customers if they don't want the data to leave their on-premise, but you can still manage it from one environment, one Logpoint environment. And we have the standard 3-tier solution where you have collectors, you have backends, and you have front ends, and we can scale both vertically and horizontally. So how does it work? Well, obviously, to get value out of a SIEM solution, the idea is you want to detect attacks, suspicious behavior, or you want to monitor critical activities. So it's all about security and it's all about compliance. And one of the first things you need to do is obviously you need to get the visibility into your environment. And how do you do that? Well, we have a broad support of collectors and fetchers, so we know how to either receive various types of log sources, could be syslog, other stuff, and also to go out collecting log data from various types of systems. Generally, it's like, applications, servers, cloud log sources, various types. Could be API based. It could be that we're using our agent to collect the log data. And when we get the log data in, obviously we store the log data, the raw log, and we actually hash it to be able to prove that it's not been changed. But we normalize it and put labels on it so we know what is this. Is it a failed SSH login, or are we actually assigning a security group to a user, creating a user, then using it for something, deleting it again? So we know what's actually going on in an English language, so it's understandable. And that's what we do with our parsing and normalization of the logs. So we store both the raw logs and the logs where we have actually done the normalization, but we also enrich it. So you could enrich it. It could be, for instance, you enrich it with a GeoIP, geographic location, could be relevant in terms of specific use cases like impossible travel. We can also enrich it with information about the users. We can also, of course, utilize threat intelligence, so we can detect if someone is accessing malicious sites, or if we have file hashes, which are actually detected as malicious. So we have all this, we have that, and we store it in repositories. And that's another advantage in our solution. That is that actually we have a very flexible way of storing the logs. You can decide. Repositories is just a grouping of log sources. And for each of the logs, repositories, you can decide the data retention. So you can say for some log sources, you will store them for 13 months. Maybe that's the recommendation. For others, maybe you will store it for a shorter time. It could be like if it was flows or something like that, which doesn't have significant value over time. And actually also we have the ability for each of these repos, meaning groupings of log sources, you can actually do tiering. So you could have, as Lars mentioned, for optimal search performance and for reporting, you could store the last 30 days or 90 days on fast storage. And then for the rest of the retention period, you can store it on slower storage. And actually also it's very flexible in the terms that it just has to be able to be accessible. So we can actually also store on external storage. So now we got the log data into the solution. So obviously now we want to use it for something, and that's where our analytics came in. So we'll do correlation across our log sources or systems to detect various types of interesting, from a security point of view, topics like, for instance, suspicious behavior. Could be like that you're not compliant with the policies you have. Maybe someone is using, protocols you don't want to see in your environment, but obviously also attacks. And how do we do that? Well, obviously, since we're collecting from all kinds of log sources, we're also collecting from your security solutions, so your EDR solutions, from your firewalls, all that. And we correlate all that, and then we will actually create cases in our solution where we gather together this information and put a severity on it. So you have the ability to prioritize what you are actually going to look into. Obviously, this is also something that can create, as we're mentioning, alert fatigue, because there might be a lot of detections in there. I mean, in a typical company, you have hundreds of millions of logs per day. Could be a very large amount of interesting logs that you need to investigate into. That's why you want to do the correlation, but also to improve your analyst's work, you would want to use automation. So the automation is a built-in part of the solution. It's in the same GUI. It's using the same log data, the same integrations, same user management. And the idea is that you can automate the investigation and also the response. So why would you want to do that? Obviously, if you have automation, you can get a faster response. And the other thing is, if you take away the tedious tasks from your analysts, it will make them much more efficient, but also perhaps much more happy if they don't need to do the same things over and over and over, which are not very interesting. And the last bit of this is obviously if you get a faster response, you can actually minimize the damage that you have in your solution. And the last bit, which I think is very cool actually, is also that you have automatically documented not only the process, so from an audit point of view, what is our process on specific types of attacks, but also when it happens, who did what when. So if you have to report to authorities within 24 hours or 72 hours, you can just click on a button and get the report. So that's actually quite cool. And also when you have to do the finished report, you can do that. We integrate also with NDR solutions, both our own and others, to complete the picture. So you not just get the logs, you also get the network point of view, because this might be very different in the terms of the coverage and also in terms of the type of use cases that you can detect. From an MSSP point of view, it's of course very important that you have a very flexible solution, but also that you can separate your customers. And actually we can do that in a very efficient way, in the sense that we can do like, shared servers for some of the customers and actually dedicated ones for other customers. So if customers need to have their data completely separated, or actually also on-premise at their location and still using your analyst for the security operations service. Yes.
Right.
I'll just...
Then I stop sharing my screen and then you can take it over, Ulrik.
Perfect.
Nice. We have a quiet audience. No one is using the chats. But I would definitely encourage everyone to use chat, especially for this section of the webinar. If you have any questions to Ulrik while he's doing the demo, then maybe he can actually show you what you're asking for. So that's a good opportunity. With that said, stage.
So, are you watching my screen now?
Yeah, you can see it.
Very good. So this is actually, what does it look like, our product? I'm logged into our demo environment that we have and shared among sales engineers from all over. And I'm logged in as a super user, so I have access to everything in the solution. Obviously, we use your role-based access control, so you can decide what log data you have access to, meaning what data, and also what functionality you have access to. And you can actually utilize external authorization. So you can actually utilize, for instance, from Azure or Active Directory, you can use groups if you want to utilize that, or you can use the internal one or a combination, depending on your security requirements. I'll focus on some of the stuff that we talked about in the presentation, but obviously this is a comprehensive product that provides a lot of functionality to help the SOC. The first thing I'm going to look into is dashboards, and we have a lot of dashboards, a couple of hundred dashboards. Some of them are related to standards like NIST, NIS2, GDPR, ISO, various other PCI DSS, and so on. Other of the dashboards are related to specific security topics. It could be authentication and authorization, could be monitoring critical user activities. And the last ones are the ones that are dedicated towards specific types of products like Office 365 or from specific NDR solutions. You can have utilize those. The good thing about this is obviously you don't need to create a lot of dashboards. You should have the ability to just enable the ones that are most relevant and tweak them. You can obviously copy them and make your own versions if you want to also. Everything in our solution is based on searches, both the dashboards, the alarms, and reports. So that means you can reuse your knowledge in case you want to create something from scratch. In this case, we're looking at the MITRE ATT&CK analytics overview, which is a dashboard. And dashboards are, it's real-time information. It's maybe updated every minute, or maybe depending on the dashboard, it can be for a longer period. But the idea is you get a real-time overview of something that's of your interest, whether it's from a compliance perspective or from a security posture point of view. In this case, we're seeing, for instance, top recurring attacks. That could be interesting from a preventative point of view. If you see attacks very often, maybe you need to do some preventative changes in your environment in terms of configurations. For instance, you also see the top users by attack tactics. And in this case, also, you can see here, we have 2 servers that's being attacked. So you get a very fast overview of what is actually going on in my environment. And it's very easy to drill down to see the specific details. You just click on it, and then it will drill down and show you both the normalized logs and the raw logs. And obviously, then you can do further investigation, drilling down further and looking at specific IP addresses from that, and so on and so forth. In my environment, it's not that interesting. In general, it could also be interesting to see what types of attacks, in what phases are they? Is it just reconnaissance, or is it more serious, having initial access, or maybe even data exfiltration? My environment, as you can see, we have all types of attacks all the time. So obviously that's not equally interesting. Another type of dashboard could be like critical user activities. So something that you might need to monitor. And you can see here, I have, for instance, it could be like, users added to administrative groups. So that means monitoring privileged access. And if you're wondering, how do I change the visualization? Well, it's actually very easy. You just click on here. You can see it's very easy to change it. And if I wanted to, I can also just change. This is search. So this is actually what actually is being displayed. So I can always do that. I can always just change it, and then I will have changed the vision, what I'm actually looking at here. Just to show a little bit of a variety, I'll also just show you another dashboard. This is obviously so related to NIS2, and we have various types of dashboards in here and all kinds of visualizations. So you have a good ability to get a quick overview, and then you can do a drill down. So this is, you can say, the real live view. And just to illustrate it, I'll just do a drill down to just illustrate what I'm actually talking about when I'm talking about drilling down to see the details. Now you can see I've drilled down. I actually get a visualization from the time perspective. When is this happening? And I can see the normalized information here, and I can see the raw logs here, which might not be easily understandable if you're looking at different types of logs. Maybe you have some related to RACF from a mainframe, you have some on an Apache, and so on. So that would require extensive knowledge, but here you can see that we labeled it, so you have easy overview of what is this related to. And if I wanted to, drill down to, I want to see specifically some information, I can always just do a drill down by clicking on the fields, and then it will actually drill down to that specific information that I'm interested in. We also have reports. So reports, that's more static information. So it's something you run either ad hoc when you need it, or typically it's something you run on a scheduled basis. For instance, every Friday at 10 o'clock. Reports is obviously something you might want to send to someone by email. You can password protect them. But whenever you run a report, whether it's ad hoc or it's on a scheduled basis, they will always be here, and they are retained for the data retention time that you are specifying. So you can say that you want to store the reports for 12 months. So if someone from internal audit asks for what did the situation look like in terms of incidents or critical user activity in this specific week, you can always drill down to that. We have, you can say, the same types of reports as we have the dashboard. So we have reports that's related to standards like GDPR, ISO, PCI DSS, or GLBE, or HIPAA, all kinds of standards, NERC, but they're just static. So when you run them, you get specific information. And when you specify the reports, you specify the format you want to get them in. You can specify, for instance, PDF, HTML, Excel, Word. Typically, you would only specify in one format. And what does it look like, a report? Well, there's obviously a title, the time frame covered, and then there's some text, and then you have the actual content of the report. And these could be tables, they could be graphics. It's all the same stuff that you can actually see in the dashboard. So it could be various types of visualizations. Yeah.
And I'll just point out, Ulrik, we should be conscious of time.
Yeah. Yes. I'll just skip right ahead to the last bit of it. What I'm going to show is about cases. So as you've seen, we have a lot of dashboards. We have a lot of reports out of the box, and it's very easy to make them because you can either copy them or you can just create a search, and then you can actually click on the top right corner and say, create alert, create alarm, create dashboard. But from the automation bit of this solution, so where you can actually get a consistent response, fast response, and also relieve your analysts from the tedious work. So I'll just show you what it could look like. For instance, phishing investigation and response. This is something we could actually get a lot of time saved. So in general, you have a trigger. So that could be anything. You want to have this trigger where it says it could be any of the built-in alarms. We have more than one, a very large amount of those. And then you have processes. So this is actually where your definition of, if we have this type of attack or this type of suspicious behavior, what do we want to investigate and how do we want to respond? So this is the definition of it. So you have that documented. And how does it actually look when it happens? Well, the analyst can see what's been going on, and they can, of course, interact with it. But in essence, on the left-hand side, you have what is actually running automatically. In this case, it's investigating MSHTA process, which is a valid Windows process that can be abused for attacks. And then it's actually investigating whether they are actually malicious. And in this case, it will actually terminate the process in case it is malicious. Obviously, if it's something that you have servers that are more sensitive, you might put in a prompt so the analyst will see the information, and then he will decide whether or not we want to terminate the process. And it can take into account, it will obviously change the severity depending on the type of attack, the type of assets that you have involved. And you can also call out, of course, obviously, to various types of solutions. In example, with the phishing, it might, go out to the endpoint, get the file hashes, send them to VirusTotal, get the evaluation back, and then prompt the analyst, what do you want to do? Should we quarantine this laptop? Yeah, so you get the idea. Just wanted to show one thing, the last thing. That would just be in terms of, the storage, the retention, just to show how easy it is. Here you have created a lot. It's just a name, repo. And then for each of the repos, you can then define how long do you want to store it. And you can just do like this and add. Then you can just put in and say, oh, well, I also want to store it on some slower storage for 150 days. So it's very, very easy to do tier storage of your log data to ensure you have a more cost-effective solution. Yeah, I think that was it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ulrik. Aise, will you share your screen so we can also do the wrap up?
Yes, let's do that. There is a question, I think. in the chat. I'm just reading it for everyone. Hello from the UK. When a phishing email lands in users' inbox, how does your SIEM automatically correlate it with the user's click behavior, their recent authentication anomalies, and the originating network indicators without a separate SOAR playbook? You can, by the way, unshare your screen, Ulrich, so that I can take it.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And the question is in the chat, if anyone would like to answer it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Ulrich, do you want to have a go at the question?
Yeah, I'm just going to write. Well, I can also just take it.
Okay, but if you write it, then we can do the wrap up from here. Yes,
cool.
perfect.
Cool. There you go.
Perfect, thank you. So just to summarize here at the end, the core of our offering is our unified SecOps platform, which brings all of your security operations into one place. And as a European vendor, we meet the strictest compliance and privacy standards, and we deliver short time to value with our out-of-the-box use cases. And for maximum control, we are also available on-prem, so you always know where your data is. And with SIEM and SOAR in the same interface, your team can also operate faster and more efficiently. And we offer broad support for EDR solutions, so you can seamlessly integrate into your environment. And built on very high security standards, our platform is engineered for trust. And lastly, with our predictable node-based pricing, you always know exactly what to expect. Please go to the last slide, Aisha.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
And just to visualize the licensing, it's built to be fair, predictable, and completely in your control. We don't charge on data volume ever. Instead, it's a simple node-based model for on-prem, so you can plan and you can budget with confidence. And as your business grows, your costs will stay stable, unlike other SIEMs that rise sharply over time. So it's transparent, it's scalable, and it's future-proof. And now I believe it's time to jump into the Q&A, although I know we are very much at the end of the hour.
Yes, we can jump on the Q&A, and I have the first question to you, Lars. So how can I leverage this pricing, this transparent pricing, node-based pricing, licensing, and in regards of compliance strategy? What does this bring to me as a value?
It actually ensures that, normally when you have a volume-based pricing, the data will often explode and you will have to omit certain log sources. But with the node-based pricing, you actually always know this is my infrastructure that I've covered, and you know exactly what you pay for. So you get the budget predictability. And that also means that you can actually ensure that you can always save the data that you need in order to support your compliance journey.
An example, I had a customer, they had just chosen to not get the logs from the firewall because it would be too costly. So even though they wanted to have it, they just didn't have the ability to do that. They were not using Logpoint. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. This is pretty much it. Please ask your